Welcome to Unfiltered Finance, and our guest today is Lance Ippolito. And Lance, there is a lot to talk about. You not in the market for a GLP-1, but the vast majority of the United States, has a problem with obesity. And so, what do we make of this burgeoning market and the continued advancements that are happening?
Well, first of all, Emily, I don't know. Lance is starting to get a little in the gut, and I might be in the market pretty soon if I keep eating the way I am for these GLP-1s. But it's a new world that we live in. Years ago, especially being in Florida and South Florida, especially, you started to see more of this weight loss clinics pop up from hormone optimization to now weight loss with GLP-1s. It's just the future. People are lazy. They don't want to put down the burgers, the fries, and the milkshake. And you know what? I don't blame them. We're Americans. So if you could take a simple pill or take a simple shot and you can lose weight, it's not just Hollywood anymore. It's the mainstream. Everyday people are doing it. So I think it's just going to become the new normal of people out there. You're overweight, you're obese, you hop on them. We lower obesity, people are more healthy. Sure, you could get into the science of the negative side effects and long term. We don't know all the studies. That's a whole nother conversation. But in my opinion, this is just the new norm.
Right. And it's only expanding as they move from shots into pills, which we can talk about in just a minute. But
Yep.
I mean, for the companies that are really are the ones who that for the companies that are the market leaders here, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, this is a huge cash cow. So what does that mean when it comes to buying and selling these pharma stocks?
Right, like you said, they are cash cows. And what you have to realize too is that these companies were already successful before these GLP-1. So this is kind of just like uh another cow out on the farm that you could keep milking, so to speak, out there. So I think it's huge for them. And you've seen lots of volatility, especially in Novo Nordisk compared to Eli Lilly, which is kind of, I would say, is like the king, the juggernaut of it. Novo Nordisk is kind of like the roller coaster, kind of like the warrior on the battlefield. You don't know if the stock's going to be up 5% one day or down 5% the other day out there. But it's just another massive stream of money coming in for these absolute juggernauts.
So is this something that you think you've already missed the boat on? Or I mean, because there's still developments, right? Like Novo already has a pill, Eli Lilly is set to release theirs. And then there are all these other companies that are set to come online with their version of a GLP-1. For somebody who hasn't really gotten skin in the game yet, where is there the opportunity to make gains?
Right. And you're correct when you said, hey, they're already so big, they've already made such big moves. So there's really two ways to go about it. If you want safe and be more conservative, then you go with Eli Lilly, you go with the top dog. It's kind of like you want to get exposure to a tech name, you go with Apple. Is it going to be the stock that's up 50% year to date? Probably not. Is it in that 5-10% slow and steady? Sure. And the one thing with Eli Lilly too is kind of they have the money to do innovation, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these drugs that they're going to come out with that are kind of GLP-1 derivatives in the future. But in my opinion, if you kind of want to aim for the fences and you want to find that flyer that could go up 50% in a day, kind of like we're seeing with Hims and Hers, you go with Hims and Hers, you go with these names that are kind of white labeling the GLP-1s and the generic medication and getting it out to their audience because now with some of the FDA and not so much red tape, you're having more and more companies pop up that are selling not only GLP-1s, but also, what I call vitamin V. If you're a guy, you take the vitamin V and next thing you know, boo. But also, from hormone therapy and stuff like that. I mean, it's really not just weight loss drugs, it's everything. People are taking control of their health. And that's the number one thing right now people are spending money on, especially with everything so expensive, is people are investing in themselves and investing in their health. In my opinion, I kind of like Hims and Hers just because it's uh, not necessarily you're not necessarily spending so much as buying Eli Lilly out there, and you have the potential for news, which can cause the stock to go up.
So when it comes to, I mean, one of the things that's interesting, and you touched on this, is the disruption of the flow of pharmaceuticals, where it's like you go to your doctor, you pay a copay, you get a prescription, you get the prescription from a pharmacy. But
Right.
with GLP-1s, a lot of that has now become direct to consumer, whether it's Hims and Hers or whether it's Eli Lilly just offering it with a rebate. So how much of a disruption is that? And how do you see that changing, pharmaceuticals, not like from a operational standpoint, but from a standpoint on how they perform the S&P?
Right. And you're correct. Back in the day, it was kind of old school. You go to your doctor, they prescribe you a drug, and then sometimes it was like an injection form. You go to your doctor, take the injection, and they were making all this money. Not anymore. Now everything is telehealth. You have a call with your doctor one time. Sometimes you don't even need to go to the doctor in some states. Of course, check what state you're in. You sign up, you say, here are my symptoms. Next thing you know, in the mail, you got a drug and you can take your GLP-1, and all they really have to do is monitor it. And it's kind of a not so much red tape, so to speak. So I think that's massive, not only for the pharmaceutical companies, but also for the telehealth companies. So you could look at like the Teladoc, ticker TDOC. The stock had a huge surge during COVID, then pulled back a lot. But again, you're having like one change to the law or one regulation that gets cut, and these stocks have the potential to soar to the upside. So it's a complete game changer. And every day, I feel like we're getting more and more news in this sector and less red tape, which is great overall for the healthcare sector.
Well, and it's interesting because with the expansion from a shot to a pill, that opens up an entirely different market where maybe there's less friction for somebody who's
Oh
afraid of
yeah.
needles. It doesn't require the storage and the temperature controls. So, foreign markets, shipping, that kind of thing. And then Eli Lilly has a version of this that they're in phase 3 clinical trials that maybe this will treat more than just obesity, but other compulsive behaviors, things like alcoholism or alcohol use disorder, as they're calling it. And so, with all of those new possible uses and expansions, on top of the fact that Americans specifically are just not going to stop eating, neither are you. Is this something that, you know, pharmaceutical companies that can get into this market we're going to see skyrocketing profits, and you've got to get in now?
I think so. I mean, I think we're still in the Wild West out there. And we didn't even touch on peptides. So these GLP-1s are just peptides. That's all they are. If you really want to get down the rabbit hole and see what these Hollywood celebrities and these athletes are using that's not hormonal, so to speak, so they're not going to get showing up on a drug test, which if people get drug tested anymore, let's be honest. But the peptides and the amount of peptides that people don't know about that are coming in from usually the gray market, usually from China, it's incredible. We're talking TB 500, we're talking BP 157. Basically, you want to repair your shoulder, maybe you have a torn rotator cuff, instead of going and getting surgery, spending tens to thousands of dollars and doing 6 months of rehab, because I know you take a simple shot a couple times a week and baby, your shoulder's up and running, you're lifting weights, you're feeling like you're 21 again. That's just the little potential that we're seeing in the peptide markets, from weight loss drugs to muscle growth to muscle repair to cell rejuvenation out there to weight loss to apparently there's rumors Eli Lilly is working on retatrutide, which is a weight loss drug, but it lets you keep that muscle mass that lots of people notice as a side effect. You often see that Ozempic face with that very, strong jawbone in your cheekbone because they lose weight so quick, so fast. This helps you retain muscle and really burns that fat, which is what everyone wants, right? We all want to be tan, buff, jacked, and skinny. I mean, it's like everything now is becoming an injection or, like you said, in a pill form. And it's not just these rich millionaire celebrities and these athletes. It's starting to get more and more available, especially on the gray market. When these pharmaceutical companies find out how they can sell it and make money off of it without being in the gray market, they're going to scoop every dollar they can.
Well, where is the pill and the injection for just getting rich quick? I'm in for that one.
Well, Emily, as you know, there's no get rich quick scheme.
You know what? That's why people listen to this show. That's exactly right, Lance, because they need expert advice from people like you. So let me ask you this, because I think this is kind of an interesting spin-off question when it comes to this. So GLP-1s drastically change the way people behave when it comes to food and drink. So do you see a situation where if this becomes as pervasive as it potentially could be, companies like Coca-Cola, Budweiser are going to start seeing a hit to their bottom line?
No. And the reason why I say that, and you're correct in thinking, hey, I can take a drug, I cannot be hungry. And the positives, like you said, sometimes it can work on alcohol disorder. I've even heard it can work with like gambling addiction and stuff like that, which we are society. What do we love? We love gambling and we love junk food, right? But the junk food part, just like I don't think people are going to stop gambling, especially with the prediction markets. The junk food, you're right in your assumption that, hey, I'm skinny, I'm not going to go to McDonald's anymore. That's logical. People don't think logical, though, especially, and I hate saying this, when you start looking at where do these companies, these Coca Cola, these McDonald's, these Dr. Pepper, who do they usually target? They're not targeting the elite wealthy who can now afford to be on GLP-1s and peptides. Because let's be honest, it's still, pretty penny out there. They're targeting the lower tax bracket individuals, the people that are going to Walmart to grocery shop, buying the cheap alternative instead of buying that Pellegrino water, they're buying the can of Coca-Cola. They're eating the Kraft mac and cheese. They're not buying, the fancy mac and cheese at Whole Foods that costs $5 for a little carton out there. So I think they're going to be fine. And who usually does one of the most common drugs in America? Cannabis. Who usually smokes a lot of cannabis? It's usually not the elite people who are taking GLP-1s. It's usually kind of that lower to middle income bracket out there. So what do? They smoke their dope. They go to McDonald's. They smoke their dope. They drink their Coke. They have their mac and cheese and they're happy. That ain't going to stop. Now it's becoming more and more prevalent and more acceptable in society out there. I drive down the street in Florida and I see 5 marijuana clinics or so. So I don't think the food companies are going to have a struggle. They're cash cows to begin with. Yeah, maybe they won't be the best stocks to invest over the next 10 years, but I think they're going to have no problem making money.
Yeah, well, to a certain extent, I think GLP-1s are a bit of an enabler. Like I can still go to McDonald's because I'm not going to eat as much of it and I'm still going to lose weight.
Correct. Don't you love that? I can eat my McDonald's, my Big Mac, my fries. Give me that McFlurry. And you know what? It's going to be okay because I got my pill. I got my GLP-1. I'm going to look good the next day. It don't matter.
Yeah. So when it comes to this for long term, if I'm trying to, if I'm looking at where to invest, and pharmaceutical companies are one of them, I mean, what is the key takeaway here? I know we said get in, but who do you feel like, people need to look at? And if you're going to play this storyline out with your portfolio, where do you start? Where do you invest heavily?
I think you go with the king, Eli Lilly, if you want to be more conservative, right? We all have different risk profiles. Me, uh, being, I would say, getting into a more conservative risk tolerance, then when I was 21 years old, I'd be going all in on some risky penny stock, right? So now my risk tolerance is a little bit lower. So I like to favor, kind of the main player in the game, and that's Eli Lilly. I think they have a good pipeline. The stock has outperformed any other kind of GLP-1 related drug, really, of most healthcare stocks, to be honest. But if I want to look for the name that could, 3x, 5x, 10x over the next, few years and have a super aggressive risk tolerance, I actually think you go with Hims and Hers, ticker HIMS, because that company has been crushed recently. It's a relatively new IPO name. The stock can have news at any time. There's a high short interest. And I personally think access to these kind of peptides, I don't even want to call them drugs because really they're peptides, is just going to get more and more mainstream. And as Americans, we don't want to go to the doctor, especially the younger people. They don't want to go to the doctor, go through their health insurance and wait and say, here are all my problems, doc. What they want to do is hop on a Zoom call take a couple clicks, say, hey, I need this drug, this drug, this drug, this peptide, this. Go like they're shopping on Amazon, and that's hims and hers. And the next thing you know, you got the drugs delivered to your house, and you can take whatever you want. I like that. And that's hims.
When it comes to the risk involved with, betting on some of these companies, do you think there is one? And if so, what is it?
Pardon me while one of these sandhill cranes pulls in the backyard. But I think with anything, there's going to be risk. One thing I believe is very positive right now is that if you look at the FDA and regulation, it's really been cut so much during this new administration. And if you look at, Mr. RFK Jr. out there, I mean, homeboy's taking every peptide drug in the world out there. So if you want a face of, hey, who's taking these drugs? The man in charge is. So, yes, of course, there's going to be risk that you can't control with regulation, but in my opinion, it's too big to ignore. And I think it's actually too big to fail. Like, you're not going to see, like, you could have a horrible study come out and say, Ozempic rots your insides and makes you die 10 years sooner. And people be like, oh my gosh, for a week. And then the next week, they'll be like, I don't care. I want to look good while I'm alive. And they're going to take the drug.
So, in your opinion, then, is this something, if these aren't going away, the companies that make these are only, the number of companies are only expanding that make these drugs. Is this a long-term buy or some kind of a short-term sell?
Long term buy, because this is just the beginning. The peptide market, when we're talking about muscle growth, fat loss, GLP 1s, we are in the early stages of it. We haven't even got into, uh, my uh, uh,
Therapy.
gene therapy like they're doing in Colombia and some of these Latin America countries. We haven't even dig deep into stem cells where I've got stem cells in my shoulder and my lower back. I feel like $100 million right now, right? Because there's still regulation and stuff like that we haven't even began to explore. And as soon as these pharma companies get the green light that they can get into this market, this is just, I mean, this is just the tip of what's to come. You're going to start seeing people change their genetics to, I want to create a baby that has blue eyes, black hair, is 6'2", and has 8% body fat and can build muscle like Iron Man. This stuff is going to happen. Like, people are going to transform. The new 25 years old is going to be 55 years old. Like, there's so much out there that right now the elite, I'm talking like the Brian Johnsons, right, the guy who wants to live to like 110, are doing, and they're self-financing this. When that becomes available to average people, look out. And that's going to happen, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. So when you invest in companies like this, you're investing in the tenants, the unsavory tenants of perhaps Americanism, vanity, and I love to eat.
I don't think it's going to change. America, baby, the greatest
There
country on earth.
there you go. All right. Well, now that your mouth's full, let me ask you the final question, which is like, what am I missing? What have I not asked you that we want to talk about? Or maybe you're just your key takeaway.
Well, I think if we were normal healthcare professionals, which we are, we would say, what are the side effects of these drugs? We don't know. They're still new. Side effects. You think people care about side effects? I watch a commercial when I watch Wheel of Fortune, and it gives me a 30-second disclaimer of side effects for this drug. You know what? The doctor's still going to prescribe me this drug. It doesn't matter out there. So, yes, with anything, there's going to be side effects. There's going to be risk out there with these drugs. I just think, and probably why we haven't talked about it, is because it's not a real part of the conversation that people care about. But there is some stuff. I don't want people to think, hey, I'm going to hop on Ozempic now, lose 50 pounds, and nothing's going to happen. There is side effects like with anything. Nothing is perfect, and that's why some of the rollout's been a little bit slower than normal. But I know just from talking with local people at the gym and, going to places like Miami and speaking with some of my older friends who are in their, 50s and approaching their early 60s, like there's so much stuff out there in the gray market that it's literally insane what's going to come to the normal pharmaceutical market. And when it gets there, these companies are going to be all over it. Because right now, when I say the gray market, I mean, you got to go on some like chemical website or know someone who knows someone who sends you this, drug, and then you got to mix the powder and it comes from China and you're buying it. Like, it's kind of like, you go to the Bahamas and you buy some dope from, the guy when you get off the cruise ship. You don't know what's really in it. It might be cannabis, it might be Delta 9, it might be, mid flowers, you might have seeds in it. You just say, you know what? I'm here, I'm on vacation, I'm going to spark it up. Well, the gray market's kind of like that for these drugs, but I would say it's a little bit cleaner. And once the pharmaceutical companies take control of it, then you're going to, get that good purity, that good peptide that you can take in a pill, an injection, and you're going to be looking good. Put it
We're
that
all
way.
just going to be like Ken and Barbies running around.
Hey, we're already seeing that from a cosmetic side. Now you're gonna from surgeries to fillers to, I mean, how many wellness spas open up every day, right? It's like the number one biggest thing. Just imagine that, but on peptides. It's going to be everywhere, and it's no longer like, oh my God, you're on Ozempic, you're on peptides. It's just going to be a normal part of the conversation. Like, oh, you wear makeup. Yep. You have a beard. Yep. Nothing new.
Yeah. All right. Well, Lance, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to learn more about Lance and where you can learn more from him, we have a link in the description below. In the meantime, we'd love to hear from you guys on what more you want to learn about on Unfiltered Finance. Please click like and subscribe.